All right, hey everybody, this is episode 7 of the Complete Strength Podcast. Lainey and I today are going to do a part 2 of the designing training programs episode that we did earlier. I believe it was episode 2.
Yeah.
I think it was the second one that we did. So this is kind of a part 2 to that. We had some other questions come in, some other thoughts that we thought went along with that, and we're going to address some of those today. And one of the big ones was mistakes that we made along the ways in terms of designing programs, creating exercises, creating workouts, some of those things. And so that's going to be the first thing that we're going to talk about. We also want to talk about how we want to grow, continue to grow moving forward, and how we are looking to the future of how we're going to do trainings and just the industry as a whole, what that might look like. And then one of a specific topic about training volume, I think we'll get into a little bit. But let's start with mistakes made on the way and some changes and some of that stuff. What are your thoughts on that? We start with that.
Well, just thinking back to when I first got into the industry, I really didn't know anything about programming. And you're not taught that in school. So
True.
even though I was going through my master's program at this time, it's something that you kind of have to research. You have to research program design on your own or learn from someone else. And so, I was at a place where it wasn't really taught to me. So everything that I learned on my own. So it was kind of a lot of trial and error through the first couple of years because I had no idea what I was
Yeah.
doing. So yeah, I definitely made a ton of mistakes programming wise. And looking back on that, I almost wish that I would have had someone say, here, like, let me show you the mistakes I've made and here's not what to do and here's what to do. But, in the same respect, it was, I think, helpful for me to learn on my own and make those mistakes and learn from those mistakes and grow with that and kind of develop my own style of program design.
Yeah, I agree. I think I don't remember if John and I talked about it. I don't think we did, but when I was first starting out, I had, in the same way, like you do your certification, you go through schooling, whatever, those classes. And then even with the certification program, we both did the CSCS, which is really good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
at the top of the industry. It's what everybody desires that you to have in the field. But you come out of that, and I remember I think I've talked about it before, but I had the first kid that I had, the first client I had at all was a high school kid, and he was a hockey player. And so here I am coming from, I just did my certification. Like, I want to get into training. This is going to be great. I've got all these ideas, and I've been following some other guys. Joe DeFranco, the guy I've followed forever, but even following like Eric Cressy was just starting out with his baseball stuff and
Yeah.
doing some really good things there. But so I get this kid who's a hockey player, and I'm just like, what am I? I don't know what to do with a hockey player.
Yeah.
I can't, and so we can't go back and like reference our textbook for the CSCS, the Essentials book, or something. And so it's just learning on the fly and a lot of self-taught stuff too. But I remember back then I would go to templates. Like DeFranco had a template that he came up with that he put out on his website that I was using to train myself to help with a lot of good ideas for myself too. So I was like, well, I'll take that and try to learn how to modify some things for this hockey kid. And that's just kind of how it all started for me with that on the athlete side
Yeah.
of trying to, because then I got a volleyball girl like the next year or so. Like then I'm like, well, I don't know anything about volleyball.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
really know. I don't have any experience with volleyball. Okay, what do I need to do here? Reference some of those old ideas and then adapting and growing, forming some new ideas. I'm thinking of, just in terms of programming that way. Early on, it was just, I think it was a lot of trial and error because
Yeah.
there weren't any things that were really set yet of this works really well here. If we get this kid in or this client who looks like this, has this background experience, this works well to start them with and then grow it from there. It's when you get your first handful of people or so You're just making it all up on the fly and trying to. Yeah, I was researching a lot of different books and a lot of different articles and stuff, what other people have been doing. But it's so much of it is, let's try this and write it down and then try to write some progressions and be like, well, I don't think that really worked.
Right.
When
Yeah.
we're doing like testing, if we're doing like pre-testing and then testing again and some of that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, a ton of it is just learning on the
Yeah.
fly and
Kind of fake it till you make it.
fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Learning as you go.
Yeah. Definitely.
How do you think about like how do we adjust? Like how did we adjust? How did you adjust and make changes along the way?
Yeah. Well, two, when I first started out, and I've said this before in a previous episode, but we did a lot of just general speed and agility training and not strength training. So that was a big transition for me, as well as trying to figure out, okay, because we would split time between speed and agility and strength. So I only have, X amount of time to get a strength program in for this hour window, and I've got 10 kids this hour, and they're all different skill levels. So, learning how to kind of balance that and adjust that per age and skill level and sport as well, and try to make it all fit. So that was definitely, I think, a valuable lesson on just being able to scale kind of exercises to fit the individual.
So that part,
Yeah.
that came from more of that experience,
Yeah.
though, and then being kind of thrown into the fire and
Yeah.
then learning how to adjust. I think that's
Yeah.
the best way that we can adjust and make changes is just going through it and
Just-
getting into it and then learning to adapt and then trying to do it better.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of as far as training this, we were just talking about this before we started, but training philosophy probably hasn't, I don't think it hasn't changed for me very much at all. I don't know about you, but the training philosophy hasn't really changed. It's just how do we get there and how do we program it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's where it's really grown. That's where I've really grown is the philosophy is still kind of the foundation. That was the same.
Right.
And then being able to adapt that. But what are some of the other ways then what do you think, how do we grow in terms of maybe the philosophy can grow or maybe yours has, but just exercise prescription, maybe a specific program design, if any,
Yeah.
some of those things.
I feel like when I was first starting out, I was just kind of like, okay, this person's coming in, here's the workout, we're following it, as is. And so I think as I've kind of gone throughout the years, it's kind of like you get to know your clients better. You're like, and then what their history is and any injuries they're working with and what they did that day or what they're doing that week. So kind of managing exercise load with just anything else they're doing. Like if they're, they go run, every day or a couple times a week. So then they come into the gym and you're like, okay, so you just ran today. So maybe we won't do sprints, or
we had in
whatever.
mind,
Yeah. So just kind of adjustments that way as well. So you don't have to necessarily stick to your plan. You can, adjust on the fly as needed. And I think that's helpful, obviously, to the client as well. So
I'm thinking of training philosophy hasn't really changed it. I mean, I know for me, the philosophy behind what is now complete strength is always, I want our people to get stronger.
yeah,
That's kind of the basic philosophy is we're not going to do Pilates. We're not doing
right.
just like the speed, agility, quickness classes, like
Right.
that specific philosophy. I want people to get stronger.
Yeah.
In all ways, in all kinds of multi-joint movements, single leg, single arm, double leg, double arm, just all the different types of movements and different planes of the body. And so like that philosophy was there and that's remained still. I mean, we're complete strength now for a reason because we're trying to help people get stronger in multiple ways. But the exercise prescription and maybe the timing of it and the organization of it has really changed.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways to be able to, like you're saying, to adapt to different scenarios
Right.
early on. Like I was saying, when I had used that template to start with, that was just kind of a template that can work for anybody. And then I had to learn how to take that and just start to mold it and start to kind of formulate my own template in a way, but
Yeah.
it's not something I necessarily used for every person, but kind of a more exercise. What am I saying? A more like concrete template for exercise prescription within the philosophy of
Right.
we do that. I don't know if any of that makes sense, but
Yeah. And I think for me, at least, a lot of my trial and error was spent just on myself. Like I would go into the gym
True.
and try things out and see if I liked how that worked or if I didn't think that would work for that athlete or that individual. And so it was a lot of just kind of playing around in the gym, playing
True.
with new ideas, stuff like that.
that's a really good point because that's something that John talked about when we did his for his PT career. He talks about how he walks it out to he's still training. He still spends his time training. Sometimes he gets hurt competing and training and learning how to deal with that and learning how to come back from that. And yeah, that's something that was important for me as well, training on my own and playing around with everything.
Yeah, because
And
it's hard to
seeing-
teach someone something that you haven't done yourself as well.
Totally.
You know, so when we're doing sprints or anything really, like any type of lifting, it's much easier to explain if you know the movement and you've done it yourself and you've tried it. And that's one of the things I ran into previously was like trying to explain to someone how to sprint, and I'm like, I've never really sat down and
Have
thought.
I worked on sprinting?
You're
Yeah.
right. I've never really sat down and thought about everything that goes into sprinting, and I need to try this out myself like a couple times so I can really be able to teach it and explain it better, that type of thing.
Yeah. I just had an idea right before we started. I looked up because I wanted to think about part of this question, maybe how has the industry changed too? And I wanted to look back. I started in 2008. I started training people in 2008. And so I started looking up. The first one we found, we're going to throw that one out. Mary Claire was our first. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Mary Claire. I don't know what it is, but we're not going to use it. But like this is some of the trends, like the fitness trends. This one is a top 20 fitness trend going into 2009. So written in 2008, and these are the top 20. This is really surprising. Number one is educated and experienced fitness professionals. Was the top fitness trend by this is medicinenet.com. So for whatever that's worth, but educated and experienced fitness professionals was the top trend going into 2009 in
Yeah.
fitness. That's not a good thing.
Not a good thing.
Children and obesity, number 2. Personal training was number 3. Personal training becoming more popular, more readily accessible. Strength training, number 4. Core training, number 5. I think that's a really interesting one because it's talk about the trend of strengthening the core, mostly meaning the abs
Right.
predominantly.
Yeah.
Like the abdominal muscles,
Yeah.
usually people talk about core training.
Yeah. I'm thinking like those DVDs you pop in and it's like Ab Ripper 3000.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's like a 20-minute
You
thing
bought
that you do.
And that was a trend.
Yeah.
Thinking of special fitness programs for older adults, Pilates on here, stability ball. That was the one we found on the other one, also called Swiss ball or balance balls. Stability ball was a big trend. I mentioned one of the worst things I think I've seen probably in my career now is the I think it was a picture of someone had their client doing a barbell back squat with 135 pounds on the bar, standing on a stability ball the whole time, doing the entire set of squats.
Yeah.
The worst idea I could think of.
Yeah.
And that was, but this was part of, that was becoming a trend. Like the
Right.
stability ball was starting to become more of a trend.
Mm-hmm.
And then sport specific training is on here. The idea of, we talked about that a little earlier, training athletes. Sport specific training started becoming more of a thing. Like, oh, what do we do with these athletes? Maybe we don't do the basic bodybuilding routine or some of the whatever else was popular
Yeah.
back in the like 70s, 80s. now it's like, well, they're sports, but let's make it a little more sports specific. Balance training, functional fitness is on this list at number 11. Functional training started to become a big thing. Not exactly sure what it all really entails or what it entailed at that point.
Yeah.
Because really
Yeah.
all good training is functional.
Functional,
It should
yeah.
be functional. Those are just some of the ones. We don't go through like the whole top 20,
Yeah.
but I wanted to look up some of those things because those were some of the industry trends
Yeah.
going into 10 years ago. And what do you think? What are some of the trends that we see now? I'm wondering.
CrossFit is huge.
CrossFit is huge.
Also, kind of, this is a trend that's kind of circled back around, I think, but like all the high intensity hit stuff, as well as like just aerobic based classes. Orange Theory is a huge one right now.
Yeah.
Those are popping up everywhere. And I think, it's interesting because I wonder how long those will be around, because things like that tend to die out. CrossFit has actually been around for a while, and that seems like it'll stay for a while.
Seems like.
But I don't know about the Orange Theory or stuff like that. I don't know if that's a trend to stay or if, so, and I think kind of going off that is we don't follow trends like that. So, we still, like you said, we kind of have a philosophy and we stick to that philosophy and we might tweak things here and there, but we're not just here for a couple of years. This is our trend gym and we're gone when this is not popular anymore.
Yeah. So we're not going to do squats on the stability ball, is what you're saying? I was thinking about putting those in this afternoon.
Maybe for Caden.
For everybody. I had to go away. I looked it up, and this is self.com. I don't know if that is Self magazine or something, but self.com now shows the top 10 or the 10 biggest fitness trends of 2018, with high intensity interval training, HIIT training being number 1. Took this top spot in the survey they did, and group training being number 2. That's a little surprising to me. I don't see that as much of a trend, but I get you're talking about maybe personal training, thinking of most kind of the still one-on-one personal training. Maybe saying group training was more of a trend, but
Yeah.
wearable technology, now that is definitely, I see that with all of the Fitbits and the smartwatches of all types. Everybody's making a smartwatch now, and some of them they're really impressive technology. They got some really good stuff.
Yeah.
It used to just be just the strap, heart rate monitor strap,
Yep.
that Pollard made, which is still better,
Yeah.
than a lot of the current ones.
is.
But yeah, wearable technology is definitely a big trend. Body weight training, they say we get number 4. Strength training, it's number 5. Educated, certified, and experienced fitness professionals is number 6. It's still a top 10 trend in 2018, going into 2019, just like it was 2008 for 2009.
Yeah. That says a lot.
I don't think, that's not a good thing.
No.
That it shouldn't be a trend.
No.
I think I agree with the high intensity interval training. I think they got that one right, and I think I agree with, and you said too. That has become a trend, and that'll take us into this next idea of talking about designing programs and training programs, something of training volume, and I'm going to use that to segue into training volume. Because you mentioned that this is not we don't want to attack, like, this is not an Orange Theory. Fitness is not bad, negative. CrossFit's not bad.
No.
CrossFit has come a long way.
Yeah.
From when it first started out, a lot of people were getting hurt. A lot of people were doing some really weird stuff. Nobody really knew what to do.
Yeah.
And now it's become its own little sport and its own training discipline. It's much more well
Regulated.
organized and regulated, and it's I think it's just more well put together. So it's not a knock on like Orange Theory Fitness or some of those things that are high intensity group classes that are using high heart rate and some of those things as the cursors for success or completion or however they do it. But what about we don't have to mention anybody in particular, but we do know of some people that we experience where maybe they feel like workouts aren't quote unquote hard enough
Right.
if they aren't maintaining a certain heart rate,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not sweating enough, they're not breathing heavy enough.
Yep.
Some of that, because that's part of that. I think that's kind of part of that, the high intensity interval
Yeah.
training trend.
Trend, yeah, and and people hear about the trend, and their friend comes into work and they're like, oh, I just had this great workout this morning, I sweated, my heart rate was so high, I felt awful afterwards, but like I feel like it was a really good workout, and it just becomes this thing like, okay, yeah, I gotta really like bust my butt to see improvements in body composition or feel better about myself or whatever it is. I don't know essentially what the goal is there with, just killing yourself. But yeah, definitely managing just overall training load. I don't think high intensity should be done every day. I think
I
that
agree.
really wrecks
That's
your body.
really, yeah, it's really hard on the nervous system,
Yeah.
on recovery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's not what we preach here. So yeah, it's definitely hard, I think, when someone walks in the door and they want to hit it hard like that every time they come in, and we see some people like that 4 times a week, and we have to kind of say, all right, we got to slow down. We got to rest. We got to, do something. And it's hard because they don't want to, because they have this idea in their head that they need to push themselves and go, go, go and not rest at all. To whatever, achieve that perfect workout. So yeah, it's hard. I don't know.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty right on. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
But how do we get to? I think the question becomes, then how do we know if it's too much training, if it's not enough training, if it's, because I know the big, this is part 2, and part 1 it was, how do you guys come up with workouts? How do you come up with training programs? And the question we got for this one was, what mistakes did we made? What have we learned? And some of that stuff. So I think that's where they go hand in hand. Like, how do we know now
Yeah.
if it's too much training? How do we come up with and make changes if it's too much or not enough?
Yeah. A lot of stuff I think too is kind of how they're feeling that day and kind of on the fly. So if they, and they might say they're feeling fine and they come in and we start the workout and you can see they're moving a little slower. So then it's kind of adjusting. They're like, you can tell that they're not performing at their top, level or their top speed. So tweaking the workout that day and then maybe future workouts that week, and then asking them about like maybe like what's your sleep like this week, or what
Yeah.
have you been eating, all that stuff plays into how you're functioning day to day and how your workout is going to be. And so yeah, just trying to kind of manage fatigue, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right on. It's how do we talked about this early on, one of those first episodes. We need to actually get to know the clients too and understand what their routine is and what they're involved in. And then how are they coming in and they're saying, yeah, okay, I just ran 10 miles. Do I really need to warm up? I think I'm warm. I'll just get right to it. And then we're thinking of, and of course, like you're saying, they want to do some high intensity something, or they want to do some Tabatas. They want to do a circuit
Yep.
of some sort to really burn some calories, keep their heart rate up,
Yep.
sweat, all those things. And we have to say, as professionals, number 6, educated. What is that? Educated, certified, and experienced fitness professionals is a trend. We have to come in and say, well, okay, let's understand that you just did this, you did all that running, you wanted this, but that's not going to give you good results because here's why.
Right.
You're probably going to, you have a higher chance of getting hurt
Yeah.
because you're already fatigued. You're in a pretty overly fatigued state. Your nervous system is pretty tired, which
Yeah.
nervous system is regulating muscle contractions, coordination,
Force output.
movement, force,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. So it's not going to be a real effective workout to
No.
try and push the limits of it and really ramp it up. And so we have to, that's where we become professionals and have to guide them and say, we can still work out. We're going to focus on some low intensity exercise, some low CNS stuff that is just not as degrading on your
Yeah.
your body.
Yeah. Yeah. So not a knock on high intensity at all.
No, yeah,
but,
that's not the point. Yeah, that's not the goal.
yeah, but you just gotta
Understanding that we can't do that
every day.
every workout
No. Yeah.
and every day,
Yeah.
back to back to back days. It becomes your nervous system just can't recover fast enough to
Yeah.
make it productive and safe.
That's just like
Healthy for
you
you.
wouldn't work out the same body part every day for the entire week. You know, it's
Yeah.
the same idea.
Hopefully, let's not. If we
Yeah,
are, let's not.
Let's
I
not
know
do
some of the guys like to bench press and do curls like 5 days a week,
Yeah.
but you're not getting a lot of results with that
No.
past day 2.
No, yeah, if you're not resting, your body's not able to recover and you're just honestly digging yourself a deeper hole.
Yeah.
So,
The final thought on the training volume, the idea of overtraining is something that I don't feel like gets addressed, especially in young athletes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's really addressed much at all. Maybe it's ignorance. Maybe it's just not being aware
yeah.
that it's an overtraining syndrome is coming on, or it's that they're in that trajectory. Maybe they're getting close to that, kind of being in that overtraining syndrome. But that's a big risk of a lot of the high volume, high intensity,
It is
consistently is getting into that overtraining syndrome.
Yeah. And we also try to kind of manage that because overtraining, you can get it from high intensity workout, but you can also get it from lifting weights. You know, it can come from anything. So, if we've got someone who played 5 games this weekend or they worked really hard like last week and they're in weights class, so we're trying to manage that fatigue for them. So they're not going into overtraining. And there is certain markers of overtraining too. Like if you're curious about like what goes on when you're overtraining, like you can have sleep problems and cognitive problems, and actually you can see an increased in your resting heart rate and just stuff like that. You'll just feel off.
Your cortisol levels are usually higher, which can lead to like more just stress, aggression,
stress, exactly.
Some of those things being a little
just
more
agitated.
on edge, high strung, agitated. Those are some things. So that's training volume. Like we're trying to program, and I guess that's probably it's not really a mistake, I would say, along the way, but that's something to definitely always grow in to be how to monitor that training volume and the load that way.
Yeah.
Moving forward, like what are some of the ways now we want to continue to grow and like stay up to date, maybe even stay motivated, stay interested in the field?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Some of the ways we want to continue to grow in terms of programming or
I think
managing.
One of the easiest ways and most effective ways is just keeping up with current research and stuff like that. But
being an educated fitness professional.
That's
a trend. It's a big trend going into next year.
So we'll keep that trend going. Just that's the basis of learning is just seeking out new information and absorbing it, and not that you have to implement everything that you read, but we have that strengthcoach.com. We're following.
There's a good plug.
Yeah.
Mike Boyles, strengthcoach.com. Great resource.
Yeah. So, there's stuff on there that I think is beneficial to us and that we can use. And so things like that, websites, podcasts, just literature, just kind of staying up to date with all that stuff. And
yeah. Not necessarily, I would say not only research just for research, but also what are other professionals doing and using, and how are they utilizing research and how are they implementing different things too. That's always still a great resource to be able to see what other people are doing well. And to be able to like, okay, this is why they're doing it well. That makes sense. I like that. Mm-hmm. We can implement that into some of our stuff.
Definitely.
Speaking of trends, this has been a lot on these trends because I think some of them are just kind of funny, but what are some of the trends in our industry now that we see that we feel like are growing or dying off or changing, either for the good, or for the worse?
That's a tough one. There's always stuff that pops up and stuff that leaves. But the Bosu ball, I think that one was really big. Like in the past couple of years, I haven't seen as much done with that.
Yeah.
And not that it's a terrible thing, but I think it's overused for a lot of things, you know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it gets the results that are intended.
Yeah. And you know, it's mainly for stability. So people are like, "Oh, we're going to use the Bosu ball for everything." But it's like, okay, me personally thinking about, okay, training athletes, how often are you playing on an unstable surface? Never.
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 Unless you play sand volleyball.
Right. Yeah. So what is the point then of the Bosu ball? You know, there's things that it's useful for, but that's not the
Overall,
core of our training.
It can die off.
Yeah, it can
little bit.
definitely die off.
Yeah, things that are growing. I think you mentioned just from CrossFit's impact on the society. I think some of those trends are growing in weightlifting
Yeah.
for females, as well as more. I guess maybe it's more the functional. I didn't really
Yeah.
understand what the functional training means, but maybe it's more kind of functional training for some of the guys too, as a trend as another way to get out of just the body part splits. Of,
Right.
I'm just going to hit my arms today, and
Yeah.
it just more of a let's do some full body type stuff, and let's do some more compound movements.
Yeah.
Like doesn't necessarily have to be Olympic lifts, but compound movements and things that are a little more movement based, and fitness as a whole being maybe a little more exciting and a little more competitive. Some of those things, I think we see it growing in a positive way that way.
Yeah. I love that trend. I love the trend of just women weightlifting. I think that's great. Not talking just general like weightlifting, or not talking like Olympic lifting or powerlifting, just weightlifting in general.
Just,
lifting
doing
weights,
strength training with
strength
weights
training, I think is a great trend. Because that's another thing that society is just says that like women shouldn't lift weights, they shouldn't be big, muscular. And not saying that lifting weights even makes you big or muscular, but that's a fear, is that it's going to make you bulky or stuff like that. But it's actually a great way to build muscle and burn body fat. And yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, I agree with that. Finished with this with Lainey, what have you learned and grown in since being here at Complete Strength? Very shameless Complete Strength plug. Feel free to throw out your best here.
Yeah.
How awesome it's been and how great we are, and
No, it's been really good.
it's the best place in the country.
Best place ever. Yeah.
Ever.
Ever. No, it's been great. I've really enjoyed it here, and I do feel like I've learned a lot and kind of grown into I don't know, just trial and error in my last place, and kind of learning to model my programming differently. And I think I've learned kind of how to train, not because I did work a lot with athletes primarily, so learning how to train athletes, but also general population clients. That's been beneficial to me. And then building those relationships with clients, and just getting to know everyone better. It's been great.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
That's good. Good answer. Acceptable. All right, we're going to wrap up with that. That is our time for episode 7. And I have the 2-minute drill coming up.
Okay.
I have to prepare for that, get ready for that. But yeah, thanks for doing this one. We'll be interested to see like what maybe some of you think about fitness trends or some of the different trends in the industry or over the years. Love to hear some feedback on that, whatever it may be. There's just some crazy stuff out there. Let's get more certified, educated fitness professionals on the trend list. Yeah, let's keep that as a trend for the next decade moving forward too. All right, so going right into 2-minute drill. 2-minute drill is today. I want to talk about, we had signing day. There was a early signing period was Wednesday, and some of our athletes signed, a lot of athletes from around the area, high school athletes, signing to all various different sports, different schools for different programs. And it's such a great thing to see. I love seeing that, and I've always been from the beginning here. We've had a lot of different athletes, different sports, different backgrounds, different goals, and I love when seeing these kids sign their letter of intent to whatever college, whatever level it is, because I think it's a mark of consistency, hard work, dedication, following a dream, chasing that dream, whatever it took for them to get to that point. And I want to use this just as an encouragement. Parents, kids, athletes, people, just continue to chase those dreams, continue to chase that vision of yourself playing sports, playing a sport or maybe multiple sports at a collegiate level of any type. And I'll never forget one of the kids several years ago that just wanted, he got cut from the high school soccer team. I think he was a freshman, got cut. Then going into sophomore, I think he got cut again. And we were starting to do some training, building some confidence, just working on some just overall training stuff. And then he decided to try tennis, went out for tennis and made the tennis squad. And through his high school career, he was a varsity tennis player, and then he got a scholarship to go play tennis in college. And he's playing tennis now at a university. And I think that's just great. It's just, he kept working at it, and he kept growing personally and in who he was and in his work ethic and some of those things. And he didn't quit. He didn't give up on that. It changed a little bit, and he just tweaked it a little bit and maybe went a different route. But I love that story. My 2 minutes are up, but that's just, I love that. That's a shout out to Frenchie, man. Like, he's one of my favorites all time, and just his story is great, and I use it all the time for different people. But continue to chase those dreams. I did 2:25, so sorry, my 2 minute drill went a little long today. So this episode 7, the Complete Strength Podcast, will be back next week, episode 8. And as always, follow us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, or on the Podbean app. And send us some questions, comments, thoughts, whatever you'd like to hear on the next one, and we can address it on the show. Thanks, guys. See ya.